Chicken tikka masala is the single most popular dish in Indian restaurants. Becky Hayes has translated this recipe for the home kitchen. You'll also learn 3 ways to grate ginger and which brand of crushed tomatoes won our tasting. To get the recipe and other information in today's podcast, go to cooksillustrated.com/podcast.
Chicken tikka masala is the most popular Indian restaurant dish in the world, and we wanted to find a way to make it at home. Start by seasoning the chicken with cumin, coriander, cayenne, and salt. Refrigerate for 30 to 60 minutes. Next, whisk together yogurt, oil, garlic, and ginger, and set aside for later. Lightly brown onions, and then add garlic, ginger, chilies, tomato paste, and garam masala. Cook, stirring frequently until fragrant and brown, which should take about 3 minutes, and then add crushed tomatoes, sugar, and salt. Cover and simmer for 15 minutes before stirring in cream. Cover this mixture to keep warm. Dip the chicken in the yogurt mixture and place it on a wire rack on a foil-lined baking sheet. The yogurt will help shield the chicken from the heat of the broiler. Broil for 10 to 18 minutes, flipping halfway through once the chicken has become lightly charred in spots. You'll know the chicken is done when it reaches 160 degrees on an instant read thermometer. Let the chicken rest for 5 minutes, then cut each breast lengthwise and then crosswise into 1-inch chunks, then stir the chicken into the sauce along with cilantro. Serve with basmati rice.
In the test kitchen, when we want to use crushed tomatoes, we actually don't use crushed tomatoes. We use diced or whole tomatoes, and we process them in the food processor to get the consistency we want. Because actually there's no federal standard for crushed tomatoes. So every time you open a can, you'll get a different texture. They'll be thick, so thick you could stand a spoon in it, or so thin that it's very runny, almost like soup. And so in order to get something reliable, we've kind of made our own, but that adds an extra step that we'd really like to eliminate. We tasted 10 of the top-selling brands of crushed tomatoes in the country. We tasted them first raw, straight out of the can, and then we tasted them cooked in a tomato sauce, a basic sauce for pizza. When we looked at the results, we realized that our tasters liked tomatoes that had actual tomatoes as their first ingredient. Some of these others would have puree listed first. Puree is not so good because it's cooked. It's cooked down to become a puree, and it imparts a really cooked taste to the tomatoes. Then we wanted to know if maybe more tomatoes per can was a good thing. So we measured the solids and the liquids in each can. We poured each one into a sieve lined with a coffee filter and put it over a measuring cup, inverted a bowl on top, and wrapped it in plastic wrap. We put it in the fridge, and we let it sit for 24 hours. When we brought it out, we measured the solids and the liquids. We found that we liked a mixture of some solid and some liquid. A medium texture, too thick or too thin wasn't good. When we did that test, a surprising thing happened. We noticed that the top-ranked tomatoes from our tasting actually had this strange yellow juice. That indicates that they were processed at a lower temperature. What was interesting about that is the lower temperature preserves more fresh tomato taste. In the end, we found that our top-ranked brands, Tudor Rosso and Muir Glen, had the right consistency, the good balance of solids to liquid in the can, a good flavor balance of sweet to tart, and listed tomatoes first as their ingredient, and that's why we recommend them.
Many recipes call for a smooth puree of ginger because large chunks or a fibrous, stringy piece of ginger will ruin the texture of the finished dish. The traditional tool for grating ginger is a ceramic ginger grater. This is our favorite brand. It's made by Kyocera. It costs about $15. The best way to use this tool is to peel back a portion of the ginger, leaving some of the skin attached to use as a handle. Then you just scrape the ginger against the sharp teeth, and that'll give you a nice, smooth puree. If you don't have a ceramic ginger grater, we found 2 other tools that work equally as well. You can use a microplane zester, or you can also use the small teeth on a box grater.
To get the recipe and other information featured in this podcast, go to cooksillustrated.com/podcast.